Hey, welcome to the Art Condition Podcast, a weekly show that will discuss the business, community, and often undiscussed stress and mental health concerns of being a professional artist, or even a serious hobbyist. I'm Joby. I've been in the tattoo and illustration professions for 25 years. My co-host is Moose, a data analyst, social media manager, and art agent. If you enjoy the content, please consider visiting the Patreon page in the show notes to help support the effort. Or if that's not an option, please like, subscribe, leave a good review, or just share with your friends. And definitely go visit the links of our guests on this episode. Thanks for listening, and have a great day. This week we are talking to Lauren Walsh. Lauren is a highly accomplished artist who has built a very rewarding career out of a passion for making fan art. This is a little unconventional, as the common consensus is that often tells us that doing such a thing can be very difficult. Typically, the expectation is that building a following around the fan art you make is that people will expect only that from you, and branching out into other formats, forums, or subject matter will have negative repercussions on income streams and follower base and all of the things that an independent artist needs to keep their livelihood afloat. Lauren's experience shows us that this is not necessarily true, and that building a support network through fan art can actually lead to great opportunities. Lauren would say that she has been fortunate or lucky, but of course we have to keep in mind the old adage about luck. It is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. Lauren truly exemplifies this. Her passion, determination, and preparation put her in the right position for opportunity to knock, and she was ready when it did. We can learn a lot from hearing her story, so let's listen. Hello, pretending that this is the first time I've ever seen you.
Hello!
You weren't here for 15 minutes before. Lauren, thank you
look at me, I've just entered the room.
Thank you so much for being here. This is an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's jump right to it. Please tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into art? And what really caved in and trapped you in the mine of art forever?
Well, to be fair, I was doomed from birth. Art for me has just been one of those things that I've basically done my whole life, really. Like a lot of like my earliest memories where I'm just like drawing underneath my like desk chair and stuff like that. So it's just like constantly been something that's around me. I did not introduce myself. Hi, I'm Lauren Walsh. I'm an illustrator in the fantasy art sector. Wow. But yeah, no, I got into art very young. Parents kind of fostered it, like that kind of thing. And yeah, it's a long journey. I don't know if I should really go into it like at the top of the interview here, but yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, no, getting into it is great. You said that you were from an early age, really like kind of feeling the power and feeling the draw. Were you just kind of like doodling or messing around, or like from a really early age you were like, I'm serious about this, I want to do this all the time?
Yeah, no, art was definitely very more of like a doodling type thing. Um, Specifically like as a mid-range millennial, um, I was, as with most, maybe I would assume, I was obsessed with Jurassic Park and dinosaurs. So I got like really into drawing dinosaurs, and then it became horses. And then the late 90s hit, and then like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh was a thing. And then I was obsessed with Yu-Gi-Oh and putting belts on every character I ever made. Like, um, and then after that, it was kind of like I drew a lot. I was really into mythology, like Greek, Roman, and Egyptian, and like just like reading Greek tragedies at a very young age. So I was a complete nerd. um, And yeah, just really got into fan art like from an early age, really. And then I became obsessed with, like Inuyasha and Bleach and Naruto, and just like completely fell down the anime hole and then was just like, I'm never getting out of this ever again. Like, but yeah, and like from there it was just like the two mixed, because it was like there was so much fan art around those IPs that like if you were into those things, very often you were also drawing fan art of those things. And even if it was just like a little doodle, like everyone's at least tried to draw Pikachu at least once, right? And it just kind of like was always fan art and art were always a part of every fandom I was obsessed with. And yeah, just kind of went that way. Eventually my parents were like, "Hey, you have a skill. We should try and foster that." And in high school, my parents, as with most parents, no one really knew at the time what illustration meant, or like that animation and this crazy new fad called anime um, was an actual viable career. So it was very much a like, hey, you're drawing, let's get you into some fine art courses. And then you go into the fine art world, and the fine art world's like, anime is horrible. Why are you drawing art like that? Why are you drawing fan art? Like, this is not how art's supposed to be. So you're like constantly fighting this one side of the art world who's like, that's trash. And then the other side where you're like, but I just want to draw cute anime girls all day. Like, why can't I do that? Um, so yeah, so I had like in high school, I had like a master painter, like, he actually did a lot of like iconography and stuff like that. And he kind of like taught me how to like do inking and copy masterwork a lot in like high school. And yeah, and I forgot to mention, I also didn't go to high school. I was homeschooled, so a lot of this had to be done on the side. And yeah, I always kind of wonder a lot, like if I had been in public school, if an art teacher would have been like, "Hey, let's go support this," and instead it was kind of like forced down this like religious side of art instead. But that's besides the point. That's a whole other discussion.
A rare chance, as far as I can tell. Most public high school art teachers are just there for the paycheck. They might not even be trained in art. So
There you go. All right, so I was good then.
Even if they are trained in art, it's there's some kind of weird miasma that you walk into as a teacher in public school that just like at some point all your hopes and dreams are crushed, and you just stop caring at some point, even if this is like a passion of yours. So yeah, as somebody that not to make this about me, but I went to a high school.
No, please.
I went to a high school that was like arts and like performing and visual arts centric, and it was still trash. So it's like, yeah, it's definitely more the rule than the exception that like public schools just don't deliver.
This is great for me. This eases my anxiety that I didn't miss out on a lot,
There you go.
I will say that was the one benefit of homeschooling, was that you could, if you wanted to learn something and you wanted to which, should have been knock knock number one, that your daughter has ADHD. If you want to hyper focus on something, you can, and you can just go hog wild on that thing. But yeah, anyway, sorry.
No, it's all good. Yeah, so you started getting this more like kind of focused attention in high school. And then was that just like a direct line to like, okay, you're going to go to college for this?
No. To me, my art has always kind of been a thing I did, but I was extremely self-conscious of. Like, I refused to let people see my work. I would hide it. In some cases, I would literally just like put it in a binder and then shove it under my bed and never let anyone see it, kind of thing. And after high school, at first my dad wanted me to get a business degree, and then I was like, nah, I want to go for English. I want to learn how to write. I want to learn how to tell stories, because like that was my other interest, was mythology and like telling stories and comics and stuff. So I was just like, I want to learn how to write. I want to learn how to tell a story. And they were like, sure, great, go for your dreams. And I was like, cool, got it. And luckily I went to Penn State, so I was pretty much any department you wanted to go to was good. Like it may not have been top tier of the country in any way, but like it was a good program. So I got my degree in English, and then in my senior year, my parents were like, "Hey, you should really go like get a degree in art as well." And they were like, you would really like you would regret it if you didn't. And then I was like, okay, fine, more debt, but fine, and then I spent like 2 years pursuing my art degree after that, and finished up, graduated, and then just hit the void of post college, and then didn't draw for 5 years.
Oh, talk about that. Wait, what happened there?
So actually I run into this a lot with students, and I kind of warn, because I also teach at Moore College of Art, and I talk to students about this a lot, where you go to school, and especially with art school too, where the professor and the teacher is like driving you. They're like, hey, do this project, do that project. And like you have all of these like projects that you have to get done by a certain date. They're basically your art director, essentially. And then you graduate, and then especially with like the fine art world, because again, I got a degree in fine arts. I did not get a degree in illustration or anything like that. And the fine art world is even more inaccessible than the illustration track. That's how I felt. I don't know if people feel that way too. Yeah, I kind of got spit up and chewed out by the fine art world because I was a digital artist. I wanted to create the artwork that I was obsessed with. Like I wanted to create the Magic the Gathering cards that I was obsessed with, and the D&D artwork that I was obsessed with. And I couldn't every artist I saw, I was like, they're all doing Photoshop. They're all using a tablet. Like, I need to learn how to do digital art. And the fine art world does, you may as well just say that you don't even draw at that point. And I'd understand why. They need to sell the original. It has to be all this other stuff. And it just was not a fit for me, and just ended up crashing and burning. And that was a huge blow. And then I think with most artists who are also gay ended up working at Starbucks for 5 years. So
Interesting.
Yeah. But after that, because my journey is really random. But I actually became obsessed with, this was what, the late 2000s, early 2010s kind of era. And I got bit by the World of Warcraft bug, and ended up just like spending way too much time on Azeroth. And yeah, top tier rating, am I right? Hey. Yeah, so I kind of like got bit by that bug, and then I was obsessed with like drawing my own character. And it was around the launch of Mists of Pandaria. They had just announced it, and I drew in Photoshop. I had my sister pose for me. I got all these references, and I actually drew my character exploring Pandaria for the first time, and posted it on DeviantArt, and then posted it on Reddit. And the Blizzard Facebook moderator found it on Reddit, and then posted it on Facebook, which at the time was king of social media. And that was like my first moment of like A, virality, and B, realizing that people liked my work, and that fan art was something that could actually drive you forward with your career. So yeah, without spending way too much time playing World of Warcraft, who knows where I would have been.
Do you still remember the feeling of euphoria you felt when you saw that repost on Facebook?
Oh, to be fair, I didn't know it happened. Like, I literally, like, at the time, I was maybe getting 5 to 10 views per picture that I was posting on DeviantArt at the time. And all of a sudden, I woke up and there were 10,000 views. And I was like, what just happened? what's going on? Like, and which at the time, for earlier internet time, that was a lot of views, you know.
It's a lot
And
now.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, no, it was just really intense. Like, it was to be honest, it was just like it felt like a constant rising note the entire time, and you're just like, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on? And like, but there was also this sense of just like, wait, can this be a thing? Can I do this, you know? And yeah, that's kind of like how I kind of started going down that road, basically.
I've been told in the past that if you can ever have memories of those feelings of elation of something that's positive success, if you're ever in the dumps, if you think back to that set and you can actually feel it yourself, it'll help pick you up and push you through whatever's blocking you.
Okay, that's interesting. Wow, that got me thinking now about like, you know, like negative feelings, and how like that's probably like, you know, this self-perpetuating thing, because it's very easy to remember negative experiences and remember those emotions. So you can easily get locked into this feedback cycle, right? Of like, oh, that felt like shit. I felt like I was a piece of shit. Maybe I am a piece of shit. I am a piece of shit.
Yeah. I would say that it's a double-edged sword for sure. This is actually kind of like one of those big ones where so many times on Twitter, you'll have like larger creators who are like, please don't worry about the numbers. Please don't worry about them. And it comes from that sense of being like, I've had multiple viral hits, and each one, like, maybe not, well, I guess I have. Well, what besides the point? um, but you get to a point where there's the flip of it. You can either embrace the like, hey, I did this once, I can do that, or you have the flip of that where it goes, why can't you get those numbers again? What's wrong about your art now that you can't get those views that you once got? And that can kind of get into imposter syndrome territory, obviously. But that was a big one for me because I had a piece on Instagram that got 50,000 likes, and I was just kind of like, it was that same elation. And you kind of start to realize that social media is designed for this kind of like gambling hit and miss kind of feeling. And what I've come to realize, and I think a lot of larger creators too, is like, guys, we're all playing a roulette table here. And some of us have more chips on the table and we can get more hits. And um but there's still a crash that can happen after, and like you have to be careful of your psyche in that moment because it can be hard. Like when you go from like 50,000 likes to only 1,000, your mind kind of goes, well, what did I do wrong? Did I displease Instagram and Mark Zuckerberg? Like, what did I do? You know?
I helped Steve Sketches run his Instagram account while that was still active, and one of his pieces got like 40,000 likes, 70,000 likes, that sort of thing. And then there was a post that I was tracking how many likes per minute it was getting in the first 30 minutes because that actually has a big factor. And one piece that I thought was cool was only getting 1,000 likes in the first hour, and that meant it was like doomed to failure in the algorithm. So we took it down because we thought it would actually hurt his account if it had stayed up and continued getting rejected by the people that should have been liking it but weren't, or could have been liking it but weren't.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even my account, and I felt terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can steal some of Moose's words, you know, in the past, Moose, you've mentioned that idea of the ceiling, you know, where like if you hit 50,000 views on a post, that's your new ceiling, that's your new objective, and you know, or whatever huge massive number, you know, your viral hit is, that's your new ceiling. And now you're a striving. So then if you get 100,000 followers or likes on something, or now that's it. And the truth is that like all of these ceilings are illusory and illusions.
Yeah. And they're also implemented by an algorithm. So that's where it's like, hey, got to separate yourself from your artwork. Like, you have to protect yourself, especially with social media. Like, it could, oof.
Yeah, no, I want to circle back to this this tangent.
Absolutely, yeah.
But to continue with the sort of the fan art trajectory, you you said that that was sort of like a little peek into the window of what was possible. So if you can like draw the line from that to when you really started getting moving with fan art, like what was that like to when that was the regular thing that you were posting on social media and getting attention for?
I would say so. There's like two phases to that for me specifically, where one, I was like deep into the World of Warcraft scene. And I will say, like, that was one thing about commissions too, which I'm sure we'll talk about, which was I was in the World of Warcraft community. And that community at the time, because you couldn't customize anything, wanted character art of their characters the way they were seeing it in their own head, similar to like D&D and stuff. And that community was like, we want to support you. We love you, like that kind of thing. And then there was this kind of like period of time where, World of Warcraft kind of fell out. It wasn't as cool anymore. No one really wanted to talk about like it was the diehards were there and they've been there for every expansion. Um and myself, I've played every expansion. I mean, currently I can't really support the company given a lot of the stuff that's come out, which really is like a heartbreak for me, honestly. Like that has always been like a big part. Anyway, that is a whole other discussion.
Mhm.
But I got into this point where I was like, hey, my art is not doing well on Instagram. And at the time, Instagram was king. Twitter was not what it was. TikTok didn't even exist. Like, you had DeviantArt, you had Tumblr. But at the time, Instagram was the number one. And I noticed a consistent theme with Instagram that it was always these like large eye, large lip, very like Instagram girl kind of art. And I kind of like fed into that and was like, hey, I'll draw this for a while and see what happens. And then my Instagram took off, but it wasn't vibing with me. Like I was like, I want to draw elves. I don't want to keep drawing these like, Fisco e-girls all the time. Like I want to draw elves doing cool stuff and girls with swords. Like that's what I want to do. And I noticed that Twitter was much more receptive to that and just kind of like started doing that. And then, it's like, hey, I like this show called Critical Role. Maybe I can post some artwork of that. And then it was just like, and I was just like, oh my God. And ever since then, I feel like I've been strapped on the front of a rocket and I'm just like constantly just like, like, it's like going crazy. like, um, but yeah, so that's kind of like that's kind of like the whole trajectory for me.
And what was the connection point to like getting commissions and like starting to get paid for this? You were saying that people wanted to see their World of Warcraft characters created.
Mhm.
Like how? Well, there's like three questions I'm trying to ask all at once.
Oh, that's
First,
fine.
at first, I guess I would like to know like how did you start finding what would be like fair compensation? This is always like a topic that we're interested in, and especially when it's in this nebulous world of like personal commissions and stuff. Were you undercharging? Were you pretty good about getting to like a fair price quickly? How did you start determining that?
Okay. Well, so in the beginning, I was doing character portraits for $50. Wouldn't exactly say that that was compensated well. To the point, I was even on a project that was I was working 40 hours a week. It was like a small game kind of thing, and I was working my butt off, and I was getting paid $100 a week for nearly like $40 hours worth of work a week. And it got to a point where I was hella depressed at the time because I was just like, I'm working my butt off. I'm barely making any money. How does anybody do this? And it got to a point where, despite the fact that I was living with my parents, like my parents were not nice enough to let me stay at the house, but they couldn't afford to like take care of me. Like I still had to make money and like take care of my own bills, like all that kind of stuff. And and I actually like had to get food stamps at the time. And I called because they have to do an interview. If you ever had to get food stamps before, they have to do an interview with you to actually get food stamps. And I told the woman on the phone how much I was making a week. at this job I was working at, and she literally was just like, "Hell no, you need more money." And I was just like, "Okay, food stamps lady, okay." So that was like my big wake up call. That was like, you need to get paid more. When the food stamps lady's telling you that you're getting robbed, you need to get paid more.
So that situation reminds me of another artist who was doing World of Warcraft busts, even recently. I think it was like as of 2 years ago, if not a year ago. She was doing busts for $100, and she was doing 10 hours of work per bust. And she had about 4 months of backlogged clients, but she was not having trouble making ends meet. She was having trouble paying rent, despite being immensely skilled and able to hit like the World of Warcraft vibe and style. But evidently that fan base doesn't sufficiently pay.
Yeah, no, I would say that comparatively, the D&D fan base is like, we want to pay you. I have actually had more D&D fans give me a tip double of what I was charging just because they liked my work that much, you know? And that was like, whew, why is that making me emotional? It was just very much like one of those things where it was just like, yeah, no, I value your work. You should be charging more. And I was just like, yeah, you're right, I should. Also, your character was cool to draw. I would say for me, I'm trying to think of like when this transition happened for me, but oh shoot, I do remember now. I was working I well, I know we want to talk about like how to like make commissions work and stuff like that, like financially, um, with everything. But I was also working a full-time job at the same time because there was no way to make it work with commissions. There was just no way. Not at the prices I was getting them at. And I was lucky if I even got like 4 or 5 commissions a year, really. Like I didn't have that many followers. I maybe had like 3,000 followers on Twitter. On that note, I have never received a commission from Instagram. I've only ever received them from Twitter, if anyone's ever considering which platform to devote their time to. But yeah. I
Steve's
am
experience was similar, where he got
oh,
like
yeah.
a handful tops, and that was with 70,000 followers on Instagram. So it's not it.
It's Twitter. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about social media eventually here, but Twitter to me is never going to go away in that sense. Like Twitter is replacing what Tumblr was. Tumblr was it was like this ability to have like text and art and picture and video all in one thing. TikTok is great, and I think TikTok is kind of filling the void of what Instagram once was. And a lot of people have gone that direction. But the one thing about Twitter is like it's the water cooler of so many industries. Like you have comics, you have gaming, you have animation, you have illustration, and they're all there together and they're able to share the writers that you need to be friends with because that's who writes the stuff you get to draw. And they're there. Like it's a if you're looking for industry stuff, that's the direction to go, in my opinion. But who am I?
That's totally valid. I agree with you entirely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. I love the way that you put that too, the water cooler of a lot of industries. Yeah, totally. So the food stamps lady is like, listen, you got to figure this out. So how long from there to like a raise in prices? What was that raise in prices?
So from there, that was I had to come to terms with a lot of different stuff, and I hit a really depressive swing after that of just being like, how do I do this? How do I make this thing that I love happen? And I kind of had to pick myself up from the ground after that because I was burnt out because I was working nonstop, barely making any money, unable to pay any of my bills, like, and that kind of stress can really get to you eventually. And so that's when I actually like got a job um at a logistics company and then started negotiating pricing every day on the phone with truck drivers. And that was an interesting event in my life. But it made me better about negotiating pricing. It made me comfortable about negotiating money. Like, if anyone's ever like seen like a floor of like at a logistics company where like it's like over the road trucking, which is what I did. And it's like the stock market. It's a lot of people being like, I've got 350, I've got 420. Like you're just like constantly like people calling it out. And then whoever gets the lowest bid essentially like wins the ticket because like the company wants to make a profit. And to me, I was just constantly there, just like, man, we are fleecing these truck drivers. Like, this is horrible. Like, how are they making any money doing this? Like, I could get trucking industry. Oh boy, you want to get into something. Trucking industry is a hot mess.
Oh,
Like,
it's so
It's going to be replaced
tempting.
with robots anyway, so it's
yeah, yeah. Which is a shame because there's a lot of really great, hardworking people out there who are like, they are it's the hidden industry that drives this entire country in a way that most people don't understand. Logistics runs the economy, and it is a lot of shady things can happen there, and it's fascinating. Also, it feels very it's like if you thought like the Blizzard stuff that came out was bad, that was just my work environment in the logistics company. It was nasty. It was really bad. But anyway, besides the point, logistics was there. I was able to like get comfortable with negotiating price. And I was also able to decline projects too. That's something I actually teach in my course, like which I teach my students a lot, is that the greatest asset in negotiating price at any point is the ability to walk away from the negotiation. And if you've lost the ability to say no, you're gonna get fleeced, like without a doubt. And the power is in the other person's hand. So if you have to actually make a living off of this, you have to have, especially in the beginning of your career, it's better to have a side job that's covering all of those necessary bills for you while you're starting out so that you can decline $100 portrait and you're not trying to make ends meet by doing like a 10 of them in a week and just to make rent that month, you know? Because we're not robots and artists can't produce like that and you're going to get burnt out. Like there's no way to maintain that intense of a work ethic basically.
burnt out or blow out your wrist.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely.
So, was there a turning point where you're like, "Oh, okay, I can jump off of this gig at the logistics company and then return to art?" And well, obviously there was a point where that happened. What was that point? And what were the like multiple revenue streams that you were using? Like, if it wasn't just commissions, what other things did you line up in order to start doing art again full time and not having to rely on an unrelated profession?
Yeah, so at that time, um, I was I was working, my full week work or full work week. There we go. And I was having to decline projects I wanted to work on that I could have taken. And it got to a point where I was like, I need to make the jump. Like, I need more time. Work is getting in the way of my other work, and I need to make this jump now. And it was terrifying. Um, I eventually I tried to do it in a bit more of a diplomatic way and a little bit of an easier way of like trying to do I tried to switch from full-time to part-time, and like I said, this work environment was kind of nasty, and, my boss at the time basically said that he was never going to hire a woman again because they couldn't do the job, and then was like, "You're gonna fail in a week, what are you gonna do about healthcare?" And I was like, "I don't know, I'll figure it out," and then I ended up just leaving in a week after that. I was just like, "Bro, not here, not today, bye-bye." Like, "You're not gonna play this game with me, like, buddy." Um, but yeah, so at that time, I was selling prints, and prints were doing like I was maybe $100 a month at the time. Like it wasn't really that much. But I just knew I was like, I have to make this jump. I had a little bit of a savings off to the side. And those first like 4 months of me doing it was a mess. Like it was just like trying this, trying that, and um, my parents had to help me out a little bit at the time because it was just like, "Hey, like, I just need some fun mood like, some food for money for food this week. Like, can you just, like, spot me, like, a couple hundred or something?" And, like, it was rough at that time. And then this was also paired, not to get personal, but this was also paired with, I had 3 family deaths all within 2 weeks of each other. Just like bap, 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 bap. And it was hard because I was like, I'm gonna go for the jump. And then it was like, your aunt died. Your cousin that was like a sister died. Your uncle died. And it was just like, and I was like, oh shit. And like just fell. But anyone would, like, um so yeah, and then I was just kind of at the time with my grief and everything, I had heard about Critical Role, and I had always wanted to get into it, but I was just kind of like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And I just sank all of my time into campaign 2. Like I just straight up watched almost 40 hours, I'm sorry, 60 episodes at 4 hours each within 3 months. Like I was just like, I was like, my grief can go away. Wow, look at these wonderful voice actors playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then just like fell into it, and I got into C2E2 and took this piece basically with me to C2E2, and my life changed forever after that moment. But yeah.
What was the moment at C2E2 that changed your life specifically?
C2E2 was the moment. C2E2 was like my debut to the Critter fan base in a way. It was like a I had done a lot of conventions before this where I was like, "Hey, I made my table back. Yay!" And um I with C2E2 was the first time I'd ever made a substantial amount of profit, and I had actually sold out of all of my prints of the Mighty Nine within the first day. And I literally looked at my cousin who was helping me, and it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I like called a print shop and was like, I need more prints. And like they're like, we're closing in 30 minutes. And I'm like, go get them for me. And like it was really intense. And it was just like the amount of people like coming up to me and being like, I want that print. And it was like the first time I'd ever had an entire fan base basically being like, that's the print of the show. I want that one in particular. Like I had never had that happen to me. And then I got to, and then after the convention was done, Matt Mercer came up to my table and I was like, oh shit. And then I like, he came up from behind me and I was breaking down my table. And then I heard my voice, I heard my name from like behind me, turned around, saw him, ran away, just straight up booked it. Like, was just like, no! And like ran away from him. I went back. I went back. And he's a lovely person. And it was just kind of in that moment where I went, everything's different now. I don't know what happened, but my life is different now.
So how did that conversation go? I'm curious.
I've honestly blacked out on most of it. Yeah, no, it was just very chill and, just talking about the con and, you know, just I think yeah, no, it's all kind of just like and you're just like, you're real? What? Oh no.
But it wasn't a time where he then jumped out and said, hey, we like you to do some work for us.
Yeah, no. That kind of happened later. In a way. It's just kind of been one of those things where I've just been a part of a lot of Critical Role projects since then. And it was just like with the puzzle and everything. I don't really know how much I'm allowed to say about it, but it was the both teams that were like trying to get this puzzle made, which is this one here. Like both teams brought that piece of artwork to the table and said we should make a puzzle of this. And it was definitely just like this moment where I was like, oh, wow. Oh, okay. And yeah, and from there just like people at the time, like this was just like a period of time from like like C2E2 happened in 2020, and then the world ended. And it was just like the amount of people, the print sales I made from C2E2 is actually what let me like live throughout the pandemic until I was able to actually go back to teaching in the fall. Like without, that's what I'm saying. Like C2E2 for me that year saved my career in a way that like I was already getting hit by a tsunami wave of grief from everything that had happened. And then the world just shut down. And like, luckily I had this nest egg of print sales that I had made. I think at that convention I had made like $7,000. So it was enough for me to be like, okay, I can budget this and like live for a couple months. What's going on? Why is the world going like this? Like that kind of vibe.
While we're on that note of print sales and how well you did selling those prints, obviously it's a thing. People are selling prints of their art of pre-existing intellectual property. But I've also encountered some hesitation in that regard, or some people that are maybe unclear on what the legal concepts are in that. Can you talk about that for a little bit in terms of what your understanding is as far as like what's outside the safety zone and what's inside?
So definitely outside of the safety zone is touching anything owned by Disney. Disney will find you. It doesn't matter if you're in the woods. They will find you and they'll be like, oh, you owe us money. And then you're like, oh shit, Mickey, what are you doing here? Like, so, so yeah, so anything Disney related, don't even touch it with a 10-foot pole. I actually had a friend of mine that did a picture of a monkey on poppies, like poppy, like the flower. She had a DMCA takedown request from Disney because they were like, "That's Wizard of the Oz. That's Wizard of the oh my God, Wizard of Oz. Thank you, Wizard of Oz. You can't do that. That's our IP." And it was like it had nothing. It was literally just a monkey on a poppy field, and it was like, cool. That's how intense
confusing.
you are. Yeah, no, they're intense. So again, I wouldn't do anything Disney related. It
But
depends on. Sorry, what?
Sorry to interrupt you, but Disney owns so much. And even in a situation like that where it's not even Disney related, like that seems like it's going to be hard to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where I don't really know how Marvel is anymore. I mean, like you can do it, but there's also so many different iterations. So if you're doing MCU Spider-Man, that might be where the issue comes into play. But if you're doing like, I don't know, Ultimate Spider-Man outfits or something like that, you might be able to find that kind of leeway. You also don't necessarily have a lot of people like going down the aisles being like, oh, check that down. Like, it's a little black markety sometimes.
It's a great market.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the issue is when you post stuff online and you have the title of something as Spider-Man, that's when you start running into issues with it being able to be searched and with people being able to find it and then be like, you need to take this down, like that kind of thing.
Well, not even people, bots.
Yeah, bots. Yeah. Also, never, ever, ever, ever post "I want this on a shirt" under anyone's art on Twitter. That is how bots steal artwork and put it on shirts. So even though you want that design on a shirt, don't say it.
DM it, right?
Yeah, or be like, I would love this on a piece of cloth of which could be draped upon my body.
Can you clarify that a little bit? Because maybe all of us are in the inside know. Outside, that might be unclear. Because there's like this Chinese connection that's happening there. Like, what are we talking about exactly?
Yeah, so basically, there's a lot of bots out there. Like, there's these like these knockoff shops that essentially just like take the artwork and they will basically make like a print to order thing for shirts. And basically their attempt is to try and like, if you are selling it as a shirt or you're selling this design, their attempt is to be like, oh, they like that artwork, hey, try and buy it from us first. They're basically just trying to get a couple little hits off of certain things. So if you actually comment the words "I want this on a shirt," the bots are like constantly like skimming for that on Twitter and probably on Facebook as well, and Instagram. That's actually how I found a lot of my artwork on these sites, basically. And that's not supporting the artist. Like, it's literally being stolen and being printed onto clothing without their consent. And yeah, there was something else I wanted to say with that, and I forget. Oh, this is also how they tried to like get the whole Disney, like they were literally like putting actual copyright Disney stuff, and people were saying, I want this on a shirt, I want this on a shirt, I want this on a shirt, to try and actually get the bots to put copyrighted Disney content on shirts so that Disney would find the companies and shut them down. Which just, galaxy brain moment.
I like that. That's clever.
Oh yeah. It's like that. It's like the meme of like, let them fight.
Yeah, totally. So that gray area, when it comes to things like Critical Role, where now you're in like Dungeons and Dragons area, which now you're in Wizards of the Coast, now you're in Hasbro, where that's a pretty wide margin of error. How do you navigate that without stepping on toes?
So I will say that specifically with like different IPs, they also vary on each one. Like there was a whole thing with Blizzard too, because again, I was really into WoW at the time. Where they basically said, if you make fan art of our work, we own your art, basically. And it was like, oh, okay. Like they basically said, if you make fan art of our IP, we have the right to use it anywhere we want, which is kind of scummy. Should have been a warning sign. But yeah, so it depends on each IP. With Critical Role specifically, they're in this kind of weird gray area because there's no true official design of each of the characters. Like, yeah, you have like their characters and stuff like that, but no one's ever really copying that to the T. A lot of the people that are out there are making their own designs, like their own vision of Critical Role characters. And so you kind of run into that situation there. With client work, it really depends on each thing. So with Critical Role specifically, and with the puzzle and stuff like that, it's a licensing contract where they have the rights to print it on a puzzle, but they have no other right to any other things with the design. So I would also argue that that's a huge thing for passive income for things that you really want, if you have the opportunity to actually license out your work for different things and to be making passive income on pieces so that you're not constantly having to create a new piece for more money. And you can have a piece where you're like, hey, here's a limited edition print of this design. Only 100 are going to be made, but it's different. And that way you're actually able to get more money out of each piece and actually be able to live. Because truthfully, if you're just doing client work, you're kind of under the poverty line, kind of. Like, the unfortunate thing to tell a lot of younger people in the industry is most of these jobs do not pay well. Covers for comic books are trash money. Like $200, $300. Like, that's not a livable wage. Like, and comics and the illustration department industries really need to raise their prices. It's extremely unfair that that's what they're still charging what was acceptable in the 80s. And you're like, hey, it's 2020, inflation happened multiple times. You should really raise your prices, which leads a lot of artists to have to like rely on fandom to pay their bills. And that's a shame. I mean, it's not a shame, but you have to have so many revenue streams to make it work. I went off topic. I don't even remember what the original question was.
No, it's fine. But you did bring up a topic I do want to touch on real quick because it's something that we don't get to talk about very much. And that's licensing. So I'm part of a group of a bunch of other fantasy artists, and whenever someone is offered the opportunity to license out the work, they're like, well, how much do I charge them? How do I, without making them run away? What's appropriate? And sometimes the answer is like $200, and I'm thinking that doesn't seem like it's going to be enough, right?
Yeah, with licensing, there's different types of ways of doing it, right? And this actually also goes into children's book illustration and just like cover illustrations for publishing as well, where you're essentially like you're you're getting royalties for each time it's used, right? And what you'll do is maybe you do a $200 advance on royalties, and then once that $200 is surpassed in royalties per piece, then you get another check, another check, another check, and that way you can make more. Giving complete buyout for licensing is a huge mistake because it's just, that you basically go, hey, oh, you want to use that on a t-shirt? Well, you're going to make, hundreds of thousands of dollars on that t-shirt. Give me $200. And you're like, no, you should be getting a cut of each of the t-shirt. Like, um, so there's a lot of that happens. A lot of, if you don't think a project is going to do well, you can ask for a higher advance on royalties. And then most likely you're probably not going to ever get royalties again from that piece. Or you can be like, hey, I think this is going to do well. I'll do this much for advance on royalties and then X amount per unit per run or whatever. And that kind of makes it so it's a passive income. And then you get like a $200 check once a month or something like that, like, which helps. But yeah.
I wanted to ask about that idea of there being a specific design. Like in the case of Critical Role, there isn't a specific official character design for any of the characters in that. But then let's say you do a painting of one of the characters fighting a beholder or a mind flayer, of which there is a very specific IP, a specific character design that does fall into a legal IP zone. Where are you at there?
That one is a gray area that I'm not too sure. That's one I've been like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Hope no one notices. Maybe it's a problem. Not sure. We'll find out. like that kind of thing. But I will say specifically with a lot of fantasy illustration things, they often give you the rights to actually get prints of your work made in the contract. And this is why Lauren's contract corner is make sure that you always have a contract with every piece that you make. And I don't care if it's your uncle who's trying to make a new children's book, get a contract signed. And yeah, it really depends on each client and what their contracts are like. Some are much more stringent about like, hey, you did work for us. You can't sell this work. Like you can't make prints of this work. We own full buyout rights of this work. And most of the time you're like, okay, you paid me. That's great. But there's other companies, and I mean, like, I don't know if talking about contracts tied directly to names here is something I'm allowed to do, so I'm not going to say it. But a lot of the times you are given the right to be able to sell prints of your work. And you have to double check for that. And if you can, actually ask if that's a possibility in your contract. Contracts don't have to be set in stone, and you can actually negotiate them and be like, hey, I'd prefer that I'm credited like this. I prefer to have the right to make print sales. And normally people are, accommodating to that. But yeah, if that answers that question.
It does. It's much more emphatic advice than I've given in the past, where I'm like, well, if you've got an email chain, you're probably okay. But you're like, no, have like a fucking real piece of paper in front of you. What resources would you recommend for people learning how to write a contract or get some templates? Like, what do people do there?
Yeah, so one great resource, there was this amazing convention in Philadelphia. It was called Artisticon, and it was only around for like 2 seasons, and then COVID hit. And they actually had a lot of contract lawyers and stuff like that come and talk to you about your contracts and stuff like that. And it was really great. One resource that I think is just like gold standard, really, is Drawn and Drafted by Lauren Pampanelli, I think her last name is. Um, she has green hair. You probably know her from Twitter.
Oh, that green-haired lady. Yeah.
Green-haired Lauren. Yeah. I could probably give some links for the show notes and stuff like that. But you can look up drawnanddrafted.com. They have a lot of really great resources on what certain terminology things mean in a contract. And how to write one and like how to have things done. They also have some templates that you can use. A really great resource. Let me get my button on. Is the ethical handbook to have this because there's so many contracts in here. Go get one. I mean, I've had this one for almost 10 years now and it's never done me wrong. So
That's the Graphic Design Guild.
Yeah, the Graphic Design Guild handbook, pricing, ethical guidelines. It's a very weird state. Yeah. They also have different pricing things in there. They have different types of contracts to use. I have a catch-all contract that I use for a lot of my stuff. And it's really kind of more in my favor most of the time. And sometimes, most of the time, when you're working with a big client, they have their own contract that they want you to sign, which by all means, please, Um, but yeah, I highly recommend that. I think you can actually get PDFs now of it, I think, instead of the actual
Wouldn't shock me.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I would do that, drawn and drafted. Those are really great resources to have. And really the contract is there to protect you. An email chain's always great and everything, but actually having a legal document that says, here's a late fee, here's a cancellation fee, here's how much you're going to owe me if you are this late on your late payment, like that kind of stuff that you can actually take to court if you had to, and be like, they signed this contract, they agreed to this. And, it's not just an email chain where it's like, well, I didn't fully understand. And it's like, okay, but the contract, I tell them to read it fully. Please fully understand this. And yeah, it makes it a lot easier and you're a lot more protected. I would say specifically, like, it was actually my experience in logistics and doing that kind of stuff constantly that made me be this paranoid about having an email chain and having a contract at all times, because I watched too many truck drivers get completely run over by big name lawyers because they're like, well, they didn't sign the contract, and like, yeah, you had an email chain, but you didn't have the contract. And it's just like, sorry, oh, play again. And it was really horrible. And I was like, you know what? No, I have my contract. Let's try and play this game,
So the takeaway is, one, have a contract signed, obviously, but also there's like many different social media platforms that people are on, and they tend to just do these conversations in their DMs. So generally, I suggest sending everybody you get from whatever platform to your email, so you don't have to wonder, did I find this person on Reddit or Instagram or whatever, and then have to search through those threads, which are not searchable in most cases.
Yep. Yeah, get them over to your email. Have the contract signed, and the contract should be signed before you even put your pen to pencil, or your pen to paper. And that way everything is very clear about like what advances are, should be had. And that way too, it also establishes this kind of like professional atmosphere and this professional attitude, where a lot of the times if you're having stuff in DMs, it can be very informal. And having it in email automatically shifts it over to, no, I am the professional in this space. And very often, if you can lose that, that energy when it's just a like verbal deal, right? And you can also lose that a lot with like family and friends, which is why I also recommend not doing stuff for family and friends, because it can get, especially in the beginning, you can get a lot of people who are just like, well, just do this thing, and you're like, yeah, but like I can't just do this thing, right? Like, I need to be compensated for this. Like, love ya, but like, this is a business I'm trying to run, Um, one great tip that I liked a lot from somebody was that if you're starting out and that client is just not budging on the price, but you want to maintain that client relationship, is to have a first time client fee discount, where you're like, yeah, that's what you got for that one. But now, like in the future, the next project will be a different price. Like, just so you're aware of that. And communicating that and being over the top clear about every single step that's going through. Because a lot of the people that you're doing commissions with this kind of stuff, they've never done this before. They don't know what this experience is like. If you're working with a big client, they have this down to a T, and they're like, get this over to invoicing, get this over to like accounts receivable, get this over to this person. And you're just like, cool, 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 you know? But it's really the time I've had to really have to implement a contract to that degree is usually for the lower to mid-range client. That's usually that kind of like, we don't really know what this is like yet, and like that kind of vibe. But yeah.
So going back to, you know, the C2E2, you said it was, right? And having all of those prints and, you know, that kind of really sort of established you as this, you know, go-to fandom artist. Was it just critical?
I guess so.
Yeah, well, I mean, you were doing a lot of like D&D type stuff and Critical Role fan art stuff. And what were there other fandoms that you were finding some audiences in as well, or was it mainly just that?
Actually a good question. There's always been a really big push from the D&D community for me. But I think the big thing for me is I'm a huge nerd for buff women. And that kind of has, yeah, right? Yeah. Give me
Korra,
more muscles on my Wonder Woman, dang it.
That
Or the
Steven
Korra you
Universe
did, right?
style.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You know, love my buff ladies. What can I say? You know? But yeah, no. So for me, I think fandom for me has always gone through my lens. Which is always a big thing with fan art, because fan art's like kind of like almost like playing this like stock market kind of thing, where a fandom can just die out. And if you did all this work for it, or maybe you became known as the World of Warcraft artist, and then everyone's like, hey, we're not really into this game anymore, bye. You've kind of like lost all of this like capital, that this social media that's a really horrible way of describing it.
That's
But
true.
yeah, it's because then everyone's like, no, we're not really into that anymore. I mean, you're a great artist, but and you're like, oh, okay, bye. Like,
Game of Thrones doesn't resonate with people anymore because of how it ended.
oh, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. I have my book over here. Okay, don't get me started.
Don't get me started.
There's won't happen. Anyway.
It's not the real ending. It's fine.
Yeah, no. Nothing counts after season 6, right? Yeah, none of it counts. But yeah, so I think playing certain fandoms kind of rise and fall. I think a big one that would be a good example right now would be Hades. How if you had done Hades artwork in the beginning of the pandemic, you're talking 30, 40,000 likes per piece. You do that now, you maybe get 5,000 likes per piece. So it's like the game is still wonderful. And the art in Hades is like honestly like my fantastic work. But just people get tired of certain things, right? Um, I was going down this route for a certain thing, and I don't even remember what happened. Please help me.
Well, I was wondering, you know, what other fandoms you liked to participate in,
Oh,
or
yeah.
were there other fandoms that you were a part of that also contributed to like income for you and stuff?
Yeah, so specifically, okay, now I know where I was going now, besides that point. For me, it is fandoms that involve strong women for me. So it is a lot of that. It's a lot of kind of like taking any fandom that I'm interested in and actually putting it through that lens. Um, Especially like being a nerd, a female nerd, or a female identifying nerd at the time, like being in that in like the 90s, the early 2000s was not exactly a comfortable space to be in. And a lot of the female characters that they were like, here's a female character for you. And you were like, where's the substance? Where's anything? She's got boobs. She's got a butt. Where's anything else going on here? You know? And that was actually always a big thing for me with any of my fan art, was to be like, strong woman will kick your ass and you also want her to step on you. Like that kind of energy. And And that's just, I guess it's also kind of like in right now, Lady D, like that kind of thing. Um, but it's always been the fandom through that lens for me. So if it again, like with Korra, like I always really identified with her. Like I liked her struggle. Like I loved Aang. I love the last Airbender and everything like that. But there was just something about Korra where like her struggle in that whole thing was just like, I identify with this. Like, yeah, no, I get you. Like, it's hard to be the Avatar, isn't it? Like. Um, but yeah, I always kind of had the fandom through that kind of lens. So I wouldn't say that it's been any necessarily like one particular fandom outside of Critical Role specifically that has always kind of pushed me forward. I've just kind of become known as the lady who draws the buff women, and it's a great place to be, you know. But yeah.
And throughout this period, have you always pushed the open for commissions thing, or was there a point where you're like, okay, I don't have to actively pursue commissions, they're just all coming to me now?
Commissions, I never really pushed them. Maybe like once or twice I'd be like, I have 2 commission slots. And normally that was around like I think that was around when I had 5,000 followers. And even then didn't really get that many hits from people. But then again, a lot of those people were World of Warcraft people, and Warcraft wasn't doing well anymore. So, who knows if those numbers would have been different. Now it's just gotten to a point where being so closely tied with Critical Role and being, the lead illustrator for Tal'Dorei Reborn, and which that just I, I did that project and I was like busting my butt, and then they were like, "Hey, you're the lead illustrator," and I'm like, "What?" Like what? Like that was very much a like I didn't realize how big of a deal this project was now. Oh no. um, but yeah, so commissions have just kind of always been a background thing for me. Um, and it's kind of gotten to a point now where it's like I can't do I can't really do commissions anymore because it's like after C2E2 I opened up my commission slots for a brief period and they filled up within like a half hour. And I was like, "Oh no. Like what happened? This is different." And that's like that transition in February 2020 was a complete and utter switch that flipped. And I was nobody before that period. And it's been a hard thing to accept and change very quick. It's only been a year and a half, if that, of this, and it's been a lot to handle. And, but yeah, so at this point, what I've been doing, or I did recently, is I actually did an auction for a commission. And that again kind of blew me away by like how much people were willing to pay. And I was just kind of like in tears receiving bids. And I was like, they want how much for a portrait? Like it was just really intense.
This
But
is
yeah.
public, though. Would you mind saying like what the numbers were?
Yeah. So the winning bid was $1,000 for a commission. And I was just like, oh, okay, you know. um So yeah, it was really intense to like kind of like go through that. And it's also why I want prints out there because I've gotten to a point now where people not everyone can afford a commission from me now, and that's something I have to come to terms with. And I am very much the type of person where I remember seeing an artist and being like, I want work from them. I want artwork from them. Like I love their work, and not being able to afford anything that they could give, like that they provided. Like even their prints were too expensive for me to handle. And it's always kind of been a major thing for me to like have that price range available for people who want my work. Cause I just don't think it's fair to like be like, oh, all prints are $50 now. And it's like, no, like let's have some mid-range stuff for like that student that is in high school and they're like, they really like my work. And I'm like, hey, I want you to have my work. And yeah, it's got to kind of have like all these different price ranges for those that like have the disposable income to ask me to paint a portrait at that cost, which just like I don't have that disposable income. what kind of job do you have? You know?
Tech.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll draw your character. But yeah, so that's kind of like the what it is now. But commissions were always just kind of like I understand why people want to do commissions because it does make you feel like it makes you feel like you're actually doing something that feels professional, right? Like someone's asking you to draw work for them. But sometimes in those early stages, they were just not worth it. Like I love drawing those characters, but like man, like you're putting in like 40 hours, maybe even more, and you're getting paid $50. Like that's not even minimum wage. Like no one can live off that. And that's why that whole thing of like raise your prices when you're like online is like, you know, it's not necessarily like a gatekeeping of commissions, but rather like I want you to get paid. I don't want you to go through the pain I did. I don't want you to have food stamps lady telling you that you need to be getting paid more, and I don't want you to go through that pain and that depression and that feeling of like my art is not worth anything. No one wants to pay me for this work, and that's a huge soft spot for me of just being like get paid like but yeah.
There's
So
that one thread on Reddit sorry, not thread on Reddit, thread on Twitter that I had go viral, had like 2 million views, I think, at this point. And the thread was all about raise your rates, basically. And this is what you can do to do that. And the responses was largely positive, like, oh, I should do this. But it was also a lot of, I can't do this. And the problem when you're doing a broadcast like that is, to some people, yes, they cannot raise their rates. They're not able to charge $30 an hour because they are in middle school and they're just doodling, and that's totally fine. Doodling is great. Everybody should love to doodle. And then there's people that were getting work for Paizo or something, so they're professional level artists, and they're afraid that they can't charge more than $150 per character because that's all that Paizo pays.
I like what you said too about gatekeeping and kind of getting priced out of commissions, but still having material and content available for people. Because one of the objections that you hear a lot is like, well, if they raise their prices, then I won't be able to afford it. This is like a consumer talking about an artist. It's like, well, don't tell them to raise their prices because then I can't afford it. And it's like, well, buy a print. So that makes me curious, as far as like before this kind of blew up. And commissions weren't really like a thing you were pushing really hard. What was like the main pillar for your income? It was prints?
That would definitely to be honest, it was nothing because I got to that point where with commissions and everything, I went, this isn't working. This is not working. And I just decided I'm going to work on my portfolio 100%. I'm going to focus and zone in on all of my problems I have. And I don't draw the full figure, but then I'm going to draw the full figure then. I don't, I actually had one person that I actually submitted my portfolio to. And this was at the time when I was doing like Instagram girl stuff, basically. And she basically said, she was like, hey, your work is amazing. You render amazingly. However, I need stuff that shows that you can do backgrounds. I need stuff that shows that you can do all this other stuff. And that was a huge blow to me because I was like feeling my oats. I was like, wow, look at me. I have so many followers. And I was like, hey, I'll do work for you. And then she was like, yeah, no. And I was like, oh shit. But it was a good moment. It was a good moment to get that rejection because I went, you know what, Lauren? She's right. Like you don't have any of the stuff that they need, and you got to work on this stuff. So I just went ham on my portfolio and just started doing as much as I could to actually like show I could do what I said I could do. And that's kind of when that transition happened. And I was doing the full-time work at the logistics company too. But after that is when it went all full print sales. So it's kind of, I would love to say it was like commissions and then prints. But it was really after, again, that C2E2 moment. And then it was just print sales. But yeah.
I thought you were going to say Floating Heads because of the podcast that you were on prior to the pandemic. I'm sorry, I forgot the host's name, but it was the outdoor interview that you had done prior.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no, it was floating heads.
Yep. So while you were talking, I was like doing, aha, I know what she was going to say next, the floating heads. And then,
Yeah, no. It was all floating heads. Absolutely. There were no neck. It was just a neck. And then you were like, here's a face. And the algorithm was like, wow. And I was like, cool. Thanks for the likes.
And real quick, you were talking about making sure that everybody can afford you, regardless of what budget they have. I think the important thing to point out is scope to budget. Scope meaning like how much work you do to them. Like if someone only has $50, you can spend maybe an hour doing a sketch for them and they'll love it, right? You don't have to do your best work for every single person that hires you for every budget that they hire you at.
Which honestly, I need to save that statement for myself because I'm extremely hard on myself and I give my 110% every time, which is always a problem.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard to stop yourself. Like too many times I've been like, oh, here's a sketch commission. And then you're like, Lauren, sketch is done. Yeah, but what if I render it more? But what if I render it a little bit more? But what? The perspective's off. Well, I gotta fix the perspective, don't I? Like, and then hours go by, and you're like, damn it, happened again.
That's the thing. Like, a piece is never finished; it's only abandoned. So
yeah. I think for me, I can't really offer commissions unless it's at a convention, which even conventions my anxiety of doing convention commissions is just like astronomical because I'm just like, and then I can't get my head in the game after that. And then if I lose myself in that kind of panic and that imposter syndrome space, it's just like, I'm gone. I'm like, hey, I'll see you next week. I'm going to go lie down for a month.
Well, could you resort to your comfort zone of drawing floating heads in that case?
Yeah, exactly. I can't even draw floating heads anymore. Everyone has to have big biceps. Can't do it.
Just draw a bicep next to their head and be like,
yeah, it's just a big bicep.
Draw their head as a bicep.
Oh, next level.
I give that one to you for free. So
thank you.
So the common thinking is that it can be hard to shake yourself out of fandom popularity. Like if you kind of establish yourself as a fan artist and a large percentage of your following is based off of that, and then you switch out and you want to start doing something else, that can be problematic. Like you can lose a lot in that type of transition. You had a slightly different experience. You managed to leverage that fan art base into a new area. What was that career change what was the career change that you were aiming for, and what was that process like?
Yeah, I think for me, I didn't really have a plan. A lot of my career has been very fluid. Like I went into this first as doing like comic book covers, and I did covers for IDW and Dynamite, and they were my first repeat clients that I had. And I love comics, like don't get me wrong, but like fantasy illustration is and always has been my absolute god. So um um so like I kind of the way I kind of I have to push the top to do this. But the way I was like trying to do this was like in my mind was go parallel to the thing I wanted, and at a certain point where I saw an opportunity, jump over into the other lane and jump over into fantasy illustration, start getting my work in front of people, um, getting my work in front of, art directors who are, part of people like Hitpoint Press and Ghostfire Gaming and stuff like that. Like get your stuff in front of those people. But at the same time, having the portfolio work that shows I don't just do covers and I don't just do portrait like layout. I can do landscape layout, and having that content ready. Because like a thing I think a lot of young artists maybe don't understand is there are going to be a ton of opportunities. That one opportunity that you think you have is not the only opportunity that's going to come. And there's going to be more instances where like, hey, maybe you did see an art director at a convention, and you didn't have the work you needed, that's fine. Like, follow them on Twitter. Maybe they'll put out a call for artists at some point in the next year. But don't lament the lost opportunity, and actually continue to work on the portfolio work that's needed for the job that you want. And also, make sure you make artwork of the job you actually want, because if you just submit all chickens, you're going to become the chicken lady, and that's all you're going to do.
Now we're getting to a Kids in the Hall sketch.
Yeah. But yeah, my career's been very fluid in that sense. I'm very, if an opportunity comes, I often try to go for it. And yeah, that's really the best way to answer that.
So, in your example of going for seeking an opportunity, like after Matt Mercer jumped behind you and
He didn't necessarily jump behind me.
Yeah. Ooga booga on Matt Mercer.
Yeah. He was just standing there.
I was just being dramatic, but yeah.
I know, I was tired.
But in the event that somebody else finds himself in a similar situation where out of the blue Matt Mercer comes and talks to them, how would you, or let's say it's somebody from D&D or like official D&D or some other maybe Susan Helme from Ghostfire Games or someone just comes out of the blue, reaches out and has contact with them. How do you follow up with that in a professional way to actually continue that relationship as opposed to just having it be a one-off and then, oh, that would have been nice to have had an ongoing thing with them, but instead I panicked?
Well, actually, funny enough, Suzanne's the one who actually gave me that hard letdown. Funny enough. Yeah, that was, and I was just like, she's right. Yeah, I would say don't overthink it, and actually treat it like you're actually just like talking to somebody and you're like getting lunch, or you're just talk to them like a human being, right? Don't treat it like this is the only time you're ever going to see them, right? Because it maybe won't be, and like it's hard because those situations are really, really intense, and like if your anxiety gets the best of you, and then you just like and you just kind of like freeze up, another opportunity will come, right? And I would say like the biggest thing for a lot of like talking to these types of people is like they're human. They're basic people who have to get groceries themselves, like don't put these people on a pedestal, right? Like I had a huge I can't name the person, but I was family friends with somebody who had a huge IP in the 80s, and I got to know him and watch people around him fawn over him and treat him like it's so and so from Thing, like, and knowing him first as neighbor and watching this happen was really odd, because it was just like he literally would be like, "Hey, give me a second. I have to go talk to these people." And it was often a like not a performative thing because he liked talking to them, but it was definitely a like creator fan moment. And trying to bridge that creator fan moment is really hard. And really the only way to do that is to just be chill and like be like, "Hey, like your work," um and that's a hard thing to ask for big fans of work. But yeah, no, treat people like they're people, because they are. They're no different than you. They have their own weaknesses, their own hardships, and you don't have to put them on a god pedestal because they're the creator of the thing that you love. And I hope people treat me the same way. You know, I've had that a couple times where I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm just a basic bitch. Come on, talk to me. Talk to me. I'm normal. Like.
So did you reach out afterwards as in an email and saying, hey, it was great to meet you, or what was the second step there?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I actually do that as a practice in general, to be honest, especially at conventions where talking to people, and like getting cards from people, and then just kind of reaching out and being like, "Hey, it was really great to meet you. I hope we can work on a project in the future. Really great, had a really great time talking to you." And I mean, that kind of comes from my dad being in sales. And it's just one of those things that kind of got like ingrained in me of just kind of reaching out to someone and like being like, hey, it was great to meet you. Cool, thanks, bye. Just making that second contact, you know. But yeah, but doing it in a way that's not too much, you know? Like I get a lot of DMs a lot of the times from people I don't know being very familiar with me. And it's not there is a weird thing there. It's a parasocial relationship. I have no idea who you are. And you're talking to me in a way that is like, we've never spoke. And you're treating me like I can come to you with a problem and talk to you like it can be an open conversation. I'm like, I have no idea who you are, you know? And that's not like, ooh, I have no idea who you are anymore. My God. Like that's not it. It's more of just like, who are you? You know? Um, but yeah. So just like respecting certain boundaries, unless that person's actually given you their email or follows you or gives that entry into that space, don't go searching for it because that is the first way to literally be like, and block, you know? So it's a very delicate process of like contacting people like that.
Yeah, I'm sure in their mind, they see you on social media, they see your tweets all the time, so they feel like they know
Do
you.
tweet a lot.
So it kind of, I didn't mean it that way, but yeah,
No, but I do. I'm just saying.
fair. So they get this sense of you as a person, and that they relate to you on some level, and then it kind of like slips their mind that you haven't actually had like a real interpersonal reaction until this DM. So I guess it's, I don't know. To my own horn, it's a piece of advice I always like to give out. It's like always pretend like you're in real life. So
Mhm.
even if you're just seeing this person for the first time or talking to them for the first time, pretend they're a TV character, because that's kind of like what it's been. They see you in this life. It's pseudo reality, but it isn't necessarily like conformed to anything.
Or
Yeah,
treat them like you're meeting them in line for coffee,
right.
you know? Because that's really what's happening. Like we're both in a certain space that's like a social space, but you may know who I am, but also don't be too predatory about it. Like don't be. I don't know. Yeah, no, it's that parasocial relationship of. I think a lot of influencers run into that now, and I think that that's kind of becoming more of a known thing. Um, Hopefully, people are kind of more aware of that. Um, but yeah, it's also one of those things that I'm currently running into now where me being vulnerable online is coming with a bigger cost to myself of people making comments and specifically it was a recent thing where I was talking about like my weight gain over the pandemic, and it got into this whole thing of like two camps of one being like, oh, it's just a self-control issue, it's just a whatever thing, and then the other camp basically being like, you're being fat phobic for wanting to lose weight. And both comments were extremely triggering in a way I can't even describe to people, where I basically was just like, I literally was like in my car and I was seeing these comments and I just was like, I froze. Like I was just like, oh, okay. And I was able, like, yeah, because I'm in therapy, but I'm able to like process that and like be like, okay, I'm being triggered because of X and this is why this is. But also like I can't be as vulnerable as I used to be. There's this transition that happens around like 20,000 followers where people kind of stop looking at you like a human and they kind of start treating you more of like this. I don't I don't
Idol.
know. Yeah, I guess so. It's a weird transition to happen and it's all very new to me, and I have always kind of been the person who kind of wants, I mean, despite being very outgoing, I don't necessarily want the attention on me. And and to kind of like be going through this and to be thrusted at that level is just like has been a ride. And it's been a hard thing to process with everything. But yeah, being vulnerable online and trying to make that connection with fans is kind of coming at a cost. And it is one of those things that like I want to be vulnerable with my fans, which is even a weird sentence to say to me, but at the same time, I can't do it anymore because now you retweet that because it resonates with you. And then some, Joe 1555-6 comes along and then has his input. And it's just like, then my day is just like completely ruined. And it's hard to explain that to people who don't really kind of go through that too often. And then you kind of come off as this kind of like, oh, I don't know, someone retweeted my thing. And then now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm sad because someone commented on my thing. And then you have somebody else who's like, I don't get comments on anything. Fuck you. Like, and then you get into that territory. And it's nasty sometimes.
It's taken me about 30 years to learn that there's a lot of people on the internet who you should just ignore, and they're just garbage people, and they're out there to make you feel bad, and there's nothing you can do about it except for ignore them. Or maybe troll them back, but you have to be a small enough account to get away with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if we're going off on this tangent, but there is a sense of punching down where I personally, in my own morals, refuse to troll back on these people, because I know that if I say, fuck you, you're making me feel bad, there's 34,000 people behind me that might dogpile that person. And I don't want that. I don't want to affect that person with that, because that's a nightmare, and I don't want that. And I've seen that happen to so many different fandoms and different artists where they just like, they get an army of people just being like, meh, at that person. And it's not a fun time. It's hard being morally conscious on the internet. No, but yeah.
Well, you used a good word in there. The key word is fan. We've been talking about fandoms, and now you have your own little mini universe of fans as opposed to a community. You talked about that 20,000 follower threshold.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like when you transition out of a community into a fandom. Like now you have fans, and that can be like, I'm sure that could be like super surreal, and people like aspire to that and look up to it, and that's fine. Like get yours while you can, but just be conscientious of all of these things, that all of the baggage that is going to come along with it, and get a therapist as soon as you can afford it, hopefully.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, 100%. Oh, there's no way you could do this job with social media the way it is now. There's no way you could do this without a therapist, because if you do get to that point where you're like at my level, get ready. like I keep telling my family that I'm preparing for death threats eventually. Like that's my mentality. Is I've had too many friends who have gone through this, and or rather, like we all kind of found each other with like larger accounts, just kind of like getting into DMs and like talking and stuff. And to me, I'm really dreading the 50,000 mark, because that's where people are like, yeah, that's when the death threats come. And I'm like, cool. All right, I'm prepared, I guess. And I've had I've had weird things where I'm like added in different comments, and people are just like, I want my birthday wish is to hang out with Lauren Walsh art. And I'm like, I don't know who you are. Like, and being a female too in the digital space is kind of like, so is this like, what? How serious do I need to take this?
Which variety of hangout are we talking about?
Exactly.
It's creepy any way you cut it. Like, I don't think that there's a way to hang that out the window where it's not like, what is that? But this is I think a good segue into some other concepts that we wanted to talk to you about. Specifically these arenas of marketing and personal branding, and these are two concepts that are often thought of as four-letter words. They're dirty, they're tainted, and after a lot of what we've just been talking about, you can see why. Outside of the sleazy, slick car salesman kind of thing that is typically associated with marketing and branding, outside of that, there's all of this like negative social media fallout kind of stuff that you can fall or run aground on, whatever it is. How do you straddle that between like, this is a necessary evil, this is something that I do, and keeping yourself out of that mindset of like, oh God, this is terrible for my soul and I'm a bad person?
So specifically on like the marketing side of stuff, I think that that's more so like I'm never going at blah, 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 blah. When it's with marketing, it's more about that beginning stage of who are you? How do you present yourself to the internet? How do you present yourself to clients? How do you present yourself at a convention? And it kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? Like specifically like the story I remember is when I went to school for English, I had to take a lot of courses in like literary theory and whatever. Not whatever. I actually really liked that stuff. I should have known I was gay when I went to do queer theory, and I was like, "Really, Lauren? You took queer theory and you didn't know?" Like, but that's besides the point. Um, but yeah, so uh, I this course like this guy was like talking. He was kind of like he was older. I would say he was probably like Gen X kind of age, old Gen X age, and like kind of right after Boomer kind of level. What is these words I'm using? But he's a good
Twitter.
way. Yeah, right. Um, and he was talking about how logos had taken over the world. And I'm looking at him in school and I'm like, bro, all I've known is logos. What are you talking about? Like, so there's this transition where branding and marketing has become such an intense thing that we don't even know it's there anymore. And it's just a constant background noise. So, like, if I'm talking about branding for an artist, I'm talking about, like, hey, have a consistent have a consistent visual narrative across your platforms. Make sure your website looks the same. Make sure that your website looks like your Etsy page if you can make it look like that. Make sure your business cards and your packaging for your prints all fits this specific brand narrative of your artwork. Personally, for me, I like to use like a lot of black and white because I like to let my artwork do most of the talking, but that's a big thing in branding of just like, some of the greatest artists out there. I mean, like it's perfection across the board. Like someone had the time to like go and like do that branding for that person. Um, for the marketing side of things, it's kind of we're in this age now where the internet can sniff out disingenuous community building in an instant. Like if you're not if you're really not into that fandom, they're gonna tell. Like they will know. And like they're just kind of like, yeah, you're just kind of doing this because that's what everyone else is doing, right? And so, make sure you're staying in the things you actually want to do and not just like, hey, D&D's hot right now. I'm gonna jump on that train. I would like you to. I appreciate, like, I want you to. I want you to experience the glory that is Dungeons and Dragons and all TTRPGs and not just Dungeons and Dragons. And you should try out other systems. Um, but yeah, like, experience those different things. But like the marketing side of things is not necessarily like marketing in that, like, kind of like, ah, yeah, we're going to go and we're going to make this poster. We're going to make millions. Like that kind of vibe. It's making sure that you have a consistent narrative, like that your voice is the same across platforms, like that you're like sharing your work with stuff and actually having launches and creating that kind of uh narrative. I see a lot of artists now who um they actually keep a lot of their prints as like limited runs because it actually like generates more people to want to buy content, and that's like a consistent trend I keep seeing. Um, I'm also very. I actually had a period of time where I was trying to become a graphic designer and a UX and UI person because I was just like, I was like, I want to do art. I don't know if this is going to work out, and I really like took classes in this stuff and like really dove into it. And I actually went up to other little companies and I was like, hey, can I do your logo for you? And they were like, yeah, sure. Um, and I got to a point where I was like, why am I not doing this for myself? Like I should be doing this for me. I should be doing user research for myself. Like, I want to figure out what my followers want from me and What do I want for myself, and how do I make that happen? But I will say that having a large following, I am deeply indebted and grateful to my followers, and I never once view it as like too much as a burden. It is very much a like, thank you for following me. Thank you for liking my artwork. Like, thank you for supporting me. Like, you have no idea how much you've changed my life. And that's the truth of it, is like there is an intense amount of gratitude. And I try to offer as much back to the community as I can, but there also is only so much I can give.
I
But
want to
yeah.
jump on real quick. The idea of perceived value with a limited edition prints. That was something Gavin, a previous guest of ours, had done an entire article on, where he started to do a master print for each run. And I would suggest even like doing like a quote unquote first print, because people like being first, right? So
Yeah.
that's just something that people could jump to and attach value to
Mhm.
instantly. Cost you nothing.
Yeah. I mean, actually making yourself creating value for yourself like that is a big thing. And that's not a bad thing. There are just some people who want to collect that. Like there are people who are collectors, and if they want, like, why not give that to them? You know, give that opportunity to them. And it also benefits you too. But this is also kind of like that price point thing, right? Where you can have that that higher end print that's a limited run, but you still have the $20 prints that anyone can buy. So you're not kept out of the loop, but there are certain things that are like limited run of things. Like for me, my biggest regret was actually taking the Mighty Nine print and making it a limited run, because I didn't know that that print was going to take off the way that it did. And a lot of people have just been like, "Oh, we'll just take it off the limited run, like it's okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, but not in my mind." Like I told these people this is a limited run. Like, what am I gonna do? Come out and be like, "Guess what, guys? It's not a limited run anymore." Like then you like lose all your credit, you know.
You just got to draw
Um,
something similar, I guess, right?
yeah. I am working on a season finale Mighty Nine poster for New York Comic Con, so that'll be, get ready, people.
What were some of your earlier experiences in learning about these concepts? You mentioned that foray into doing, you know, logo design for other people, and I'm sure probably some of the work at the logistics company kind of played a little bit of into this. But you know, in terms of like resources and like hands-on experience, I guess I would say, what were some things that you were using to figure out even terms like uh what user research, I think was
Yeah,
what you
user
said.
research.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like all of the terminology and weird little things that you aren't even aware exist until you start learning about them.
Yeah, I just like kind of like fell down a rabbit hole on YouTube. I think the one that I really kind of was just like, oh, okay, okay. Like it explained a lot of different stuff, was The Future without an E. I liked his stuff. I mean, sometimes he can be a little bit of an asshole at times, but that's besides the point. But yeah, no, I liked his stuff. It kind of opened up that whole side of graphic design and user research and UI and UX and user experience. Also, a big thing that actually taught me that in a way that I didn't know was working at Starbucks. All of Starbucks is user experience. That entire position of working at Starbucks is all user experience. That is what you are getting paid to do. You are making not that good of a latte. I said it. I love Starbucks. I love Starbucks. But let's be honest, your foam's not on point, okay? Your microfoam collapses a lot. Anyway, um, but yeah, no, user experience to me was Starbucks. And Starbucks was a masterclass in that, and trying to like understand like the way they branded stuff, and like the way that they presented their content that they were trying to sell, how they embraced the internet in a way that, you know, as a barista I was just like, god damn it. But you know, embracing the secret menu, embracing the pink drinks, and embracing all that kind of stuff. But also Starbucks was also the place where I learned a lot about just like people just will have an opinion about you and you can't do anything. Like I had this one experience where this guy, the Starbucks had announced that you couldn't have a gun. in the store. This guy literally came in. He's like, "I got a gun on me. What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "I don't know. Have a great day."
Call the cops?
Yeah, like, oh, it's a gun. Oh, like whatever. Dude, I'm making your drink for $725 an hour. Get fucked, get out. Like, it's just like, it's but yeah, so sorry, I just got really aggressive because that guy pissed me off so bad. It's been years. I still remember it.
I get it.
But yeah, so like Starbucks was the masterclass of user experience for sure. In like just being around that. And this is also kind of like a big thing for me too, is like, hey, yeah, you may be at Starbucks, you may be working at a logistics company. It doesn't mean you're not gaining experience in all these different little things that you can implement for yourself, for your own business in the future. And, pay attention because you're learning lessons and you don't even know it, But yeah.
Some of what we've talked about so far almost tempts me to want to suggest to people, like younger artists or less experienced artists, probably more younger artists, specifically people that haven't had too much experience, like in a retail position, maybe. It's tempting me to want to suggest get a retail job or get a job that isn't related to art to start getting some of that type of experience, but in a field where customer service is prioritized. I don't know. Is that resonating with you, or are you just like, no, that doesn't sound like good advice?
No. I think that I guess the way to phrase that is, if you're in a job, you can make that job work to your benefit in any way possible. Make it a learning experience. And I don't even think at this point, with the way that the economy is and stuff like that, like, I don't know. I mean, hell, retail jobs now are paying more than I was getting paid. That's for sure. Given everything that's happening, I mean, obviously, do what's right for your safety. If you don't feel comfortable working in a retail job right now with COVID, don't do it. But if you can, getting any kind of job will give you that education in different things. Like the logistics job for me taught me how to organize my email, how to reply to emails in a consistent manner, how to communicate with accounts receivable, and how to communicate with invoicing. Like how all of those email corporate experience, like how much that actually influences how I run my business now, and how I'm able to keep up with clients, and how I'm able to keep track of stuff and time management, and like all of that stuff is because of logistics, because I worked at a trucking company, and sometimes, yeah, you can take a course on that. That's sure, that's true. But for me personally, I have to get in there nitty gritty and like really kind of make a process that works for me. And to be honest, I've thought about it a lot of being like, hey, if my journey had been any different, would I have liked it as much? And honestly, I don't see my journey working any other way. Like each job I had that was not art related really helped me. Like, but I was also looking for those lessons too. I was actively in my mind being like, I need to apply this to how I'm going to make art work, and how am I going to make my business work and stuff like that. And it's just been a thing that's always just been there for me, really.
And your background in English, maybe that helped you in some way when you're writing in Twitter on 140 characters or less in a string.
Yeah. Actually, honestly, English majors get a bad rap. And you know what? I am using my degree because if I hadn't had my degree with English and the intensity of doing literary analysis and how to get that analytical about things and to process it all out and write everything out and have that thought process in my brain, I don't know if I'd be here. English is just as important. Like, go English majors. Your degree means something, damn it.
I was just trying to slyly add in a question from the audience. Dave Cave Draws wants to know like any specific tips you may have for crafting your tweets or other social media posts that are like text heavy.
Hmm.
Does this go to branding, like where you make
No,
sure you?
this is just the algorithm. really. Like, this is more of just like, if you're doing a text heavy tweet, it's better to just have like a thread of stuff, right? Sometimes I'll actually write all of the tweets out before I send them out sometimes. Um, but a lot of the times for me, like when I get really text heavy speed tweets, they're very emotional for me, and they're very like, this is a thing I'm passionate about, god damn it, and like, and I'm just like going off, I would say for text heavy tweets, it really depends on the situation, but use the thread to your advantage, right? And um yeah, Twitter likes text speech. Like, wow, that was even words. Likes text heavy tweets sometimes. If you can implement like a meme, that'd be great. But also like take note of the room. Read the room of Twitter, right? Like, don't come out and like, if all of Twitter is, because it happens all the time, like you can see it happen all the time, where all of Twitter is like, hey, we're going to talk about this thing today, and this is what we're talking about. And if that's the case, and maybe you have something that you've been working on and you want to talk about that thing, join that conversation, right? But and I'm thinking specifically of like Black Lives Matter. When that conversation happened. And anybody who was like speaking on a different topic was like, read the room, bitch, and like, you should not be promoting your work right now. This is not the conversation we're having right now. And you kind of have to respect Twitter's boundaries, because Twitter has its own emotions and its own thing. And um yeah. So if you have something you want to talk about, make sure it's kind of part of the conversation that's been going on at that point that people are interested in. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, we're talking about this today. So, yeah.
That's a little weird for me though, because like I understand it entirely, but at the same time, I'm thinking, not everybody's plugged into Twitter at all times, so they could just jump in and be like, "Oh, by the way, I wanted to talk about this thing that happened at the supermarket today," and then people are jumping down their throat, be like, "No, we're not talking about that today. Don't you understand what we're into?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"No, I just got back from the grocery store. But why?"
Yeah. 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 That happened specifically to a couple artists during Black Lives Matter, where they were like, yeah, no, I'm going to keep drawing my artwork. And it was like, ooh, ooh, okay, ooh. It was not a good time. I don't think that they deserved the hate that they got, because no one really understood at the time what intensity that was going to be. And like looking back, yeah, like, hey, this is not the time to talk. I'm a white woman. I need to shut up and listen. Like, yeah, no, we got some stuff we got to work through today. Like, this stuff I didn't even know, and um sometimes that's just what happens with Twitter. I mean, sometimes I don't know. Like, it's impossible to know all the time, but sometimes when the conversation's happening, that that's what's going on. Um, but yeah. Also, our Twitter likes to rehash the same discourses over and over again, but that's besides the point. Like,
So, how would you go about? Let's assume that it's a sunny day and there's no heavy topics going on. Is there anything that like you can do as an easy go-to to get people on your side, and just like something that you're actually genuinely interested? Let's say you're not just hopping onto the new D&D thing because it's the new guide came out. You have nothing. You don't know anything about it because you're not into D&D. But let's assume that it's something that you're actually interested in. How do you utilize Twitter to your advantage?
I was going to say, that's assuming there's ever a sunny day on Twitter, but that's besides the point. um, yeah, I mean, my go-to is usually buff ladies. That's my go-to. Sorry, pretty standard on that side though. Um, but yeah, I think it depends too. Like, I've had stuff where I wanted to announce certain things, but then, you know, um, the conversation got dominated by something else. And truthfully, you just retweeted another day. You tweeted another day. Don't retweet your work. I mean, retweet your work, obviously, but if you can, do an actual post again, as opposed to taking an old tweet and then retweeting it again. I've at least noticed that that helps the algorithm a bit more. But yeah. So, you know, it's not the only time it's going to happen on Twitter. A lot of the times you can repost a lot of the stuff you've said, and someone else will see it, right? So just keep trying, basically.
One of our previous guests, Arta Rain, I believe, Rangan, I believe it was, she's mentioned replying to your own thread so that they can see the old content and the new content side by side.
Yes, yeah. If you reply to your old content, that's like a boot. Like a sorry, wow, I've been talking too long.
It is a boop.
Yeah, it's a boop. It's a little boop, a little bump, basically, for like a thread and stuff. But yeah, that can actually also kind of dominate. Yeah, that's the wrong word. If you're tweeting about something throughout the day in the same thread, that can also drive engagement back to the original post, as opposed to doing it all at once. I've also noticed that too, of like, hey, also this is another thought I had. Let me add that to the thread, and then it kind of, you know, takes on more stuff that way.
So one of the other things that you have, one of the plates that you keep spitting. Now it's happening. Now it's happening to me. I caught the boop from you. So one of the other plates that you keep spinning is teaching on the university at the university level. You mentioned that before. Can you talk a little bit about what the nature of that course is and to what degree things like marketing and branding come into that?
Yeah, so I actually teach a business course basically for illustration, for the illustration majors and for the animation and game arts majors. Um, Essentially, it's an entire course of just like um, I kind of come at it from the viewpoint of this is the course I wish I had in college. This is the course I wish that professors had actually given me and actually sat me down and said, "Hey, this is what the industry is actually like." And didn't kind of like put on this whole air of like the only way to make it in after your major is to get a master's and then to get a PhD and then teach at a university, right? Um, which a lot of fine art, I feel like a lot of fine art professors were pushing me that way. They were like, you should get your master's, you should get your PhD, you should teach. Like, and I was just like, yeah, no, that's not really what I want to do, but look at me now, I guess. Oh shit. Damn it, they got me. Sorry, that just occurred to me. Damn it, she got me. Um, but yeah, no, I teach the course basically like all the stuff I wish I had known. So talking about contracts, talking about pricing, and what kind of pricing you do for each kind of project, and if you do it hourly, buyout, like all that kind of stuff. And talking about like new topics. Like I was able to talk about like NFTs with my students and be like, this is what this is. This is why this is what this is. And this is why Twitter hates it. And just being like, okay, this is what everything is there. To me personally on NFTs, they're just glorified licensing. That's all it is. And in my personal opinion, burning a lot of energy just to license a product. Don't know really how I feel about that, but yeah. Yeah, so I talk about that kind of stuff. And I actually do talk about self-care a lot too, because that's been a huge thing for me in my career where that is not mentioned. They don't actually talk about different stretches that you should be doing for your hand aside from just like shaking your hand out. Like how do you actually like make your ulnar nerve like go back into place so that you don't have numbness? Like so I actually like go through that with my students. A lot of the times they're looking at me like you're teaching us stretches and I'm like just wait for it. In 10 years, you'll know, you'll come back to me.
Nodding emphatically.
And talking about that stuff and mental health and how to process that with your work and maintain yourself through all that. And yeah, and branding and really kind of sitting down with each student because the issue specifically with illustration, it's a blanket term for so many different sectors of like children's illustration and licensing and product design and fantasy illustration and game design. Like it's so many different things under one umbrella. So I have to actually sit down with each student and be like, okay, what do you want to aim for? You know? And a lot of the times I don't know. And I have to basically be like, hey, you need to pick a direction. Because if you try to go for all of these things at once, you're gonna run yourself ragged and you're gonna burn out. So like focus on one for now, go parallel to it, and transition over eventually, right? But yeah, that's kind of what the course is. It's just kind of, I mean, like, hey, you want to go this direction? Let's talk money. Let's talk contracts. Let's talk invoicing. Let's talk self-care, all that kind of stuff. So,
there was a series of questions that I wanted to ask after that, but Don Lee anticipated a question that I had in mind for a little bit later. So let's just digress to it really quick.
yeah, why not?
He made a comment. He said, "This sounds like the course that art colleges should have been teaching since the beginning of time, but don't." And I share that curiosity about an art school. I'm just kind of using art school as like an umbrella term to cover a whole range of like curriculum that has to do with art, because you could be taking art classes at a college but not really like at an art school, and then what type of art schools there are, blah 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 blah. The point is that all of these kind of concepts that you're talking about, there isn't as much emphasis on that. And I like, why do you think that is? Like, why doesn't you know, the why doesn't CGMA have a class on, you know, business and marketing and branding and stuff, you know, or Art Center in California? You know, why isn't that like a really prominent like class? It's like, we do this is a thing you have to learn about.
I would say a big proponent of that is the fact that the industry keeps changing every 3 years. So how can you teach what's the industry is like right now and not be practicing in it? So if you have tenured, and this is no shots fired at my full-time faculty that I work with, but it is kind of like, how can you know what the industry standard is right now if you're not in it? And I kind of, for me, the way I approach this is because I don't think everyone needs art school. I don't. I love it when you do. And like, I think that that's great for some people. I think some people do need art school. They need that kind of regimented work. Other people probably don't. And for me, when I go into this course, I'm like, you have been programmed to think a certain way. I need to deprogram you. I need to tell you exactly like the way this industry is. And a big thing for me too is that more is exclusively female non-binary students. And for me specifically, like with my own passion, is to be like, I'm a woman in the industry. Let's sit down, let's talk. Like, I want you to succeed. There's too few of us in this industry. Like, I'll never forget my dad. He came to Keystone Comic Con with me, and he came up to me, he walked around the con, and he was like, Lauren, there's only one woman per aisle here. And I was like, yeah, Dad. Like, that's kind of what I'm up against right now, is like, there's not many females. Hell, any, like, it's, and this is no slight to like all of my, like, you know, my male like fans out there, but like the female voice in a lot of these situations is like, you know. So for me, I have a huge mission with more to be like, we're going to give this course to you. I want you to succeed. I'm going to give you everything in my back pocket to do this. But I think the big part is that a lot of the professors that are there, the professor that I took over, I actually knew him, and he is in an illustration group that I was in. And he was old. He was like 80. And like, he was still teaching them about fax machines in 2019. And I came in and I saw the course, and he was like, Lauren, they need you. They need your voice. They need your youth. They need you in this to actually be like, let's revamp this. And I went in there and completely rewrote the whole syllabus and was like, we need an entire section on social media. We need an entire section on all of these other things. Like, you know, we're not just designing business cards and calling it a day. Like, we need to actually talk about the business side of stuff and be open and honest. I also feel like money is not often talked about. And there's this kind of mentality in illustration and in art in general, that if you share any of your secrets, someone will kind of replace you. And I'm against that. Like, to me, I'm like, no, 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 no. We need to get more people who actually like should be up here. And it is It is a door. It's a hidden door that you don't when you're out there on the outskirts of this industry, you're like, I want this, but there's no entry level position. There's no job to get. The only job I can get is at like a AAA studio, and like, how do I even get there? And for me, I'm just kind of like busting down the door, and I'm like, "Sup, bitch, let's go! Like, get in the car. We're going to get careers," you know. So, yeah.
Whenever someone talks about an artist hiding their secrets, it makes me think back to a friend of mine who went and visited Wayne Reynolds at a convention, and then that guy just turned out to be a total shutdown as soon as he found out the person he was talking to was an artist who admired him and wanted to learn from him. He just like totally closed the door. It had nothing to. It was
Yeah.
a guy, so it wasn't sexism, but it was still a flat out. This is my work, and I don't want you to take my work from me.
And the truth is that like we all have our own voices and our own perspectives. And I I don't think it's fair. I mean, there's also a certain point where like there's younger voices that need to be included in a lot of these tables, you know? And like they deserve to be here as much as any of us do, you know? There's a lot of new It's like, how do you explain to somebody who hasn't grown up on the internet what it's like having grown up on the internet, you know? Like, my experience of being a nerd and, being a child and being on AOL chat rooms that I should not have been on, like, just like that kind of stuff, you know? Like, how do you explain that to somebody who saw it happen but didn't grow up in that thing? And those kind of voices deserve to be heard, you know? Not just like internet voices, you know what I mean? But like younger voices with different experiences need to be heard. Especially given the pandemic, y'all. Like, I can't wait for the stories to come out of this. It's gonna be great.
Oh, you said it.
The true crime stories out of the pandemic, honey.
So if people aren't able to attend your class, or they're in an area where a class like yours isn't available, do you have suggestions for what kind of resources they should be looking for or where they can go?
I would say usually from people that you admire. Um, Also creating a network of people that you can communicate with and be like, "Hey, is this like this for you? What have you learned?" Like that kind of thing. Networking, that kind of side of stuff. I have a really great group of friends where we all kind of like co-work together, and a lot of them are in comics, and I'm in fantasy and stuff like that. But we all kind of communicate to one another and pass on jobs to one another and like that kind of stuff. The other thing would be take courses. Like just go and try stuff out, like take courses in business and like just invoicing, like um and the other thing too is just try and fail. Like just fail. Like literally try and actually just bomb it. Like, like I mean, maybe not that intensely, but like you have to take chances, you have to go out and try stuff, and like art specifically is about failure where you're constantly pushing your limit and you always get to a point where like I can't do this, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to try, I'm going to go, and I'm going to go after this again, and it's just a constant brushing up against this like this failure and learning from your experiences. And I really don't think there's any other way to learn this other than to keep trying. And I wouldn't know how to invoice things or email if I hadn't worked at a trucking company, So like keep trying, keep learning. I don't really feel like there's any major resource out there for all this kind of stuff, but be hungry. Keep looking at stuff, like, hey, I mean, even me right now, hey, I kind of want to like rethink my scheduling. I'm going to go take some courses on scheduling and like, see what you can do like that.
Have you considered doing either an online course or whether it's pre-recorded or something that you do live?
I have actually. I love teaching at the college level, um, but I don't think it's fair to keep all of my knowledge to just 15 students a year. And um, I would like to do more courses. The issue for me right now is just what time. Like it may be a thing that's like in a year or two, right? But as it stands right now, like I'm booked out till November. Like what time am I gonna make a course, you know? So but yeah, I would like to eventually. Yeah.
We're coming into our wrap up now. There's a lot that we didn't get to. There's so many places that I wish that we had gone, timing just being what it is. Before we started this conversation, you were gracious enough to preemptively agree to a second appearance. And I really think that it would be great to take you up on that offer in the future. But for now, if
I'm
we
muted.
can...
I forgot.
Yeah, no worries. What were you
I
going
was
to say?
gonna say it's hard to get all this stuff done in 2 hours, you know? Like I'm teaching whole courses on this stuff, so it's hard.
Yeah, well, there's even more that I would have liked to have dug into on the fan art to, industry transition. We definitely we got there. I feel good about it mostly, but it would definitely be great to have you back. But going into sort of like a few of the final questions, I'm curious. You said that you're kind of experimental with your career. What's next? If you gave yourself a 5-year projection, where would you love to see yourself?
Well, considering what's happened in the past year, I have no idea anymore.
That's fair. That's fair. It's a little bit of a loaded question in that regard.
Honestly, though, I would love. I've already achieved a lot this year of like working with Wizards of the Coast and with Critical Role as much as I have, and moving out into like my own apartment in Philadelphia, and just kind of like making it on my own as like a single person trying to make it on my own and stuff, and that enough in itself is just like a monumental feat. But what I would really love to do eventually is I would love to actually do a Magic the Gathering card. That would be my please, Wizards, I'm already working for you. Let me do your Magic the Gathering cards. And the other thing too would actually be to get into a Spectrum book eventually. That to me would just be like, holy shit. Like I'm at the big boy table now. Like this isn't just like some girl who likes buff ladies on Twitter, right? And yeah, that would be some of my major goals that I would like to achieve eventually.
Well, if you're listening, Wizards, all of you, get to it, get on it. Where would you like people to go to find out more about you, more about your work?
You can find me anywhere at Lauren Walsh Art, on pretty much any platform. And I'm really more active on Twitter mostly. I'm on every platform, but like if you like want to hear my thoughts about like a lot of industry stuff, usually where I like go into like different threads on this stuff is on Twitter. I think last portfolio day I actually did like a whole AMA on like the industry and like answered a lot of questions. So yeah, you never know.
Moose, was there any follow-up questions you had that we didn't get to?
Just a tiny one. No, just kidding. It's gonna be a very long one. So we did touch on briefly that you had upped your prices eventually. What advice would you give to somebody who is struggling to figure out how much they can charge, even though they are producing high quality work?
That's a good question. I would say try it out. Throw a number out there, see what happens. Um, you know, there's nothing worse than shooting a number that you think is really high and they automatically go, "Yeah, that's fine." And you're like, "Shit, there was more money on the table. God damn it." But yeah, I would say it's hard because like some clients actually have very set prices on what they charge. Especially the big boys, they're very set on their prices. But other clients, you kind of start to get the sense of like what these jobs are supposed to be. A big one too would be the handbook, the guild graphic artist guild, Majab. That actually has a lot of different prices for what certain projects should cost. I will say that a lot of the prices are usually on the higher end, like if you were pricing something for Wizards of the Coast. So, adjust that to certain, maybe different clients and like what their expectations might be. But, also you're worth it. So do it, um, if you're in a situation where you have a repeat client and they gave you a lower price, there maybe need to be a very difficult conversation about like raising your prices. And talking about money is never easy. It is hard. And when you have to do it like with somebody that you've been working with for a long time, it may mean actually losing the client. And to be truthful, it is better to do one portrait for $1,000 than 10 portraits for 100, right? Like, even if you're losing clients and you have it at a higher price range, I think that that's worth it more so than doing 10 instead of one, basically. But that would be my answer. But it's also case by case. So take my advice with a grain of salt, apply it to where you need to apply it to. But yeah.
I think a lot of people just don't they strongly underestimate how much money is out there for them, and so they are comfortable with sending out an offer that they know that will be accepted, rather than trying to go for more and then having to negotiate down.
I mean, I guess the good way of saying this is that usually if you're doing a full page, most of the time you're getting around 1,200, maybe more, like 1,500 or something like that. You should be dealing in thousands. Like, it's much more money than you think, that's out there. However, you do also have to have the portfolio. So there comes that kind of juxtaposition of like, how much of your portfolio do you need to work on, and be honest with yourself. Like, do you need to work on your portfolio? Because Lord knows I did, and I got straight up declined, and I was like, cool, cool, cool. All right, I'll work on it. Challenge accepted. But yeah, be honest with yourself and be like, hey, do I need to work on this? What can I charge? And ask friends. This is why having a network of other artist friends is a huge, huge asset, is to actually talk about money with one another. Like, those are the people I talk to when I'm like, guys, I'm thinking about charging this. And every single one of them's like, no, add 500 onto that. And I'm like, I'll add 200. Let's not go too far,
That's doing the negotiation for the client, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I normally do a lot.
Joey the Saint in chat predicted your future. Quote, holy shit, just finished my Magic the Gathering card and got my first death threat today. Winning.
Oh man, I hope not.
Well, that's just because you're going to be doing the redesign of Murder for the new
yeah,
set.
yeah. Yeah, they're gonna give a no-name Critical Role fan the reins to like a major loved character, and all the dudes are gonna be like, Critical Role's invading Magic the Gathering, and I'll be like, God damn it, shut up, Twitter.
Well, the prompt was for a buff lady to be doing it, so...
Who else are you gonna call for a buff lady that is supposed to give bi panic to all women across the internet other than me? Okay.
Bi panic. That's fucking awesome. I would like that on a t-shirt. Oh, just kidding.
Oh shit! Oh no!
The bots are coming.
Our trademark final question, Lauren. Aside from work and personal projects, what's one thing that's happening in the world right now that you're excited about?
Can I be really like basic and just be like, I'm glad vaccines are out there?
Legit.
I don't know. I'm really excited for things to come back. Obviously within time, but I'm so over. I've always considered myself an introvert until the pandemic happened, and then I went, oh no, honey, you need people. But yeah, so I think like everything reopening again is something I'm really looking forward to. And yeah.
We just need to get together 100 million that have chose not to get vaccinated to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
In time. Well, Lauren, thank you again so much. This has been great fun. So much good information. And thank you for agreeing to be on again. And we look forward to that.
Anytime.
Right on. I will wave goodbye here. And then